Oh my gosh, Lalo. Yeah, it's been a minute.
It's been around, um,
It's been around a month and a half,
yeah,
I think.
since we left London for Paris.
Look, not only that, but it's like moving every week,
With a
every single
bicycle.
week. Like, wow.
We had a bicycle in a box. Uh, we had, thank God, we had your dolly and one big suitcase, one normal suitcase, two backpacks, one duffel. Yeah, it has been two duffels.
Yeah, no, because we must have had two duffels. And the only reason I say this is because we hadn't quite figured out how to get everything in the big suitcase
Yeah,
to get so that we didn't have to carry nearly as much.
yeah.
So yeah, moving that around every week for
I'm on the for 5 weeks.
5 weeks. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't even. So like, yeah, it's still nuts, and it all began when at midnight, while we were in London, on our was it our last day or our second to last day?
It was, I think, it was our last day.
It was.
I think so.
It was the morning of our last day. It was like at midnight. We're like, okay, we might need to reserve seats. So let's go ahead. We bought this 3-month train ticket.
From Eurail.
And they didn't tell us anything really about the reservations. They just said, buy a train ticket, explore Europe. It'll be
Yeah,
great. And our original plan was 3 months.
yeah.
And
The Eurail Global Pass.
oh yes, the Eurail Global Pass, 3 months. And so we're like, okay, great. Is because you had shown me, what was it, Before Sunrise?
Before, yeah, the movie.
Yeah, Before Sunrise with Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy.
Yeah.
Um, and they were riding the
Hmm.
train from cities to cities and going to cafes and falling in love. And it's like, I figured we like trains, we like travel. This is going to be pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Boy, I'm glad
Hmm.
we had a terrible day going from London to Paris before we tried to be stubborn and stick with that Eurail pass for 3 months, because we would have been screwed.
Yeah.
Like,
Turns out we didn't read the the little details in the Ural Global Pass. Turned out that it said something about from London to Paris. If you want to travel on that route, you do need to make a reservation um, for the train. And I didn't read that because we didn't have time, and we just bought it. And since previous experience that I had with Uriel, uh, I thought that it will be easier as getting there with your Uriel Global Pass or whatever, and have it stamped, and off you go. But it turned out that on that particular route it is so crowded, or so demand on such a demand that to get a seat you need to make a reservation with time, and we didn't do that. So one night before us leaving to Paris, because we already had our booking arrangement in Paris the next day, starting the next day, turned out we had to buy a regular ticket for the train from London to Paris, which costed like one third of what the URL wall pass costed in total.
Well, but let's give ourselves a little credit. Number one, they didn't tell us about seat reservations until after we bought the pass. That was on the receipt. That
Yeah,
is not on the advertisements. That is not on the site.
true.
They do not, they basically said for this one fee, you're going to be able to travel for 3 months.
Yeah,
Because if we had seen, now bear in mind, we were also planning, and we were moving out of our apartment and we were going to Mexico to see family first before doing this. And we, yes, we'd gotten the receipts, but again, what was advertised on the website in order to get people to actually buy this 3 month pass versus reality.
yeah,
Well, that's completely different.
definitely.
And but we were lucky because you magically found somebody to talk to so that we could at least get a refund. And if we had noticed the whole seat reservation thing before, I think it was like the first week of September,
Yeah,
we might have been able to get 100%. But fortunately, you noticed. Uh, Fortunately, like, how did you find that customer service person?
um, I think uh, there was a section in the URL webpage about refunds and or exchanges, and fortunately, I got into when I clicked on that. Fortunately, it put me in a conversation with a human being instead of an artificial intelligence
Oh my gosh.
um, uh, employee, virtual employee, which is more and more common these days. And that person was actually very understanding and very patient, and that person allowed us to get our 85% of our money back only only if I showed that person our flight back to Mexico, which we
Well,
didn't have at that point.
that's right. Like, we didn't have that at the point. And right before we and so basically we were like, okay, we got to figure out when we're coming home based on being able to get the rest of this money, because this is a good $1,400 that we needed. And
Yeah.
ironically, like, we didn't end up buying the tickets for like until actually I think September 30th.
Yes.
Like, that was when we said, all right, we've got the tickets, we're going home. Because remember, we had bought 3 month tickets because we were trying to not only go around Europe for 3 months, but potentially find jobs, potentially create collaborations. There was somebody that I had wanted to go to Utrecht to meet up with because they had come to Austin on Think Bike. And so having to plan for the return already was already basically screwing our plans to hell. It was already frustrating because because it's like, okay, so all of this planning that you did so that you could, because also because of this railroad fiasco and the fact that it was clearly going to cost us more if we had tried to stay longer, uh, you only got to ride once in Europe. We carried the bike more around than you actually got to ride it.
Yeah, because actually the nature of our trip was to have as much flexibility as we could have, because since I was carrying the bicycle, because I was planning on do a one or several bicycle touring trips. Um, that's why we couldn't come up with exact dates, destinations, or whatever. That's why actually that's why we hadn't bought the plane back, the plane ticket back to Mexico, because we didn't know when were we going to go back, and so yeah, that was part of the of the reasons why we bought the global pass, e-rail global pass.
Not only that, but I had signed up for a house sitting app, uh, so that basically, because this was actually advertised, there have been a number of black women who've said, "Oh, I've started house sitting, and I've house sat and I've sat house sat all over the world." And I was like, "Okay, great. Well, if black women are house sitting internationally, especially in European countries, then let's do this because that'll be easy. I can watch a house for a week. I can, in fact, we actually planned it like that to basically say, all right, well, let's start with house planning, house sitting, and I mean, you paid $50 for the app. You did. I paid $170 for mine, and we wouldn't get responses. We'd get cancellations, and people saying, "Well, yeah, that's people's home." It's like, yeah, but what's the difference between that and an Airbnb? If it comes right down to it, the difference is I am doing it for free, but I have to pay to get there. And that was kind of the point. It's like, no, we were willing to pay what it costs to get to locations, but the reality was they saw black woman and they were like, well, you're not going to be in my house. And people might say, oh, but what about Lalo? It's like, yeah, but the account was under my name. And even though I showed both of us in the profile picture, it's like, who is that black person? And that's basically what it is. Uh, so already we're having to cut our we're having to cut the time short, which means we're gonna not be able to do like our availability in Europe is going to be severely diminished. So we couldn't meet with prospective employers, collaborators, colleagues. Doesn't matter. That wasn't going to happen. Uh, we're not going to be able to go to all the cities we'd planned because you had a list of cities, right, Lalo?
Yeah, all over Europe, all the way down to Italy, um, Eastern Europe, and yeah, we we couldn't do it. We couldn't get to those those places. We couldn't get as far. We ended up having to stay with the family. Uh, that was the only option because we ran out of money for lodging.
Exactly, because and it was funny because the people for the house sitting app that I had signed on to were like, "Oh, but maybe somebody will sign on." And I was like, I'm now paying for this trip out of pocket. I need you to give me my money yesterday." And fortunately they did. So and so yeah so we showed Urail, the Urail customer service person, that we did in fact have tickets home, and fortunately they gave us our tickets within 24 hours. And boy, that was great, because the next thing we saw was a strike.
Yeah.
It was like they went on strike in France. They went on strike in Italy. There was a weather issue in Spain. Was it a hurricane?
Yeah, it was a hurricane.
Okay, so there was a hurricane in Spain, and and it's like, wow, okay. So, and all of this happened after we canceled our tickets.
Yeah.
Or all this after we also got our refund. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Um, I And, to people thinking that it's like, oh, this is just your vacation, here's the thing. If you are planning to change your life and migrate to different places, the first thing you got to do is check it out.
Definitely.
Like, you can't just be like, oh, well, I'm going to go there and it's going to be amazing. Like, that lifestyle is over. Like, you have to be born wealthy to live I'm going to go over to another country and it's going to be amazing. Um, we weren't sure what to expect, but the fact that London to Paris was such a headache, not to mention the customs we had to go through.
Yeah.
To get from London to Paris, because that's that whole EU versus the United Kingdom drama too. And getting your bike from the UK to Paris. Oh my gosh.
That wasn't easy. Because even though that I had bought a ticket for my bicycle, uh, since my bicycle was inside of the box, it counted not as a bicycle but as a special luggage or big luggage. So it had to go through baggage check like in an airport. So I had to go around all of the station with the bicycle on the dolly to get it checked, passed through X-rays and and I don't know how many other um, checks. But finally, I managed to check in my bicycle. But yeah, that wasn't easy. That was very very stressful time because I had bought a AirTag to to know the position of my bike and so I could check where the box was. And no, very very stressful. I was
Because
checking
we
that.
couldn't see it from London to Paris.
Yeah, it was a very very stressful time from one place to the other.
And we were lucky because the second we got out of Paris and I saw a rail worker carrying it, I was like, there, right there. Yeah. And we caught it so that it didn't have to take extra time. But it was like, man. And again, yeah, we had a lot of stuff. But that bicycle it wasn't the only reason we came to Europe, but that would have been ridiculously sad and unbearable if something had happened to that while we were doing it. And the truth is we're both cyclists. I had to sell my bike so that we could move and so that we could store everything, but we're both cyclists, so you're being able to bike tour in Europe was another thing that we would have had to check for if we were basically doing our scouting trip. And not impossible, but I felt like it was a lot harder than it needed to be.
Yes.
Like that was the thing. And again, this is not even going across an ocean. Well, technically, it's going across an English channel,
Mhm.
but it's not going across an ocean. It was. Did we even change time? Yes, we did. We changed time zones. It was 1 hour later,
Oh, you're right.
but it was just like, man, that was a lot of headache
Yeah.
just for a 2 or 3 hour thing. In fact, we looked for different ways to get there because we were like, surely it's not all of this. But no, that's a different. And people might say, "Oh, Brexit," and it's like Brexit can only be so much of an excuse before that's just like, this is getting into the EU in the first place by train, not by plane, by train.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, should we have taken a bus on the channel? Like, what
Mhm.
what was our other choice to be? Um, but yeah, I think that's the main reason why when you so basically. Oh, and by the way, when we got to Paris, like the whole, like, because there had been, and rightfully so, a campaign about the displacement of Airbnbs, we were like, okay, well, we're going to rent hotels and only hotels, but we got to have stoves because we just can't afford to eat out for every single meal. That's just a great way to go broke.
Yeah.
So we got taxi, a taxi, from the train station to our location. Fun fact, taxi drivers in both London and Paris have to study for 3 years
Yeah.
before they're allowed to be taxi drivers. So if you're in a London or Paris taxi, it's a special experience.
Yeah. That's why they don't like Uber drivers because I think it's Uber drivers don't go through that uh, process.
No, an Uber driver says, I have a car.
Yeah. Yeah.
but but no, so we got to Paris. We got to our spot. So we go in, and mind you, we've had this ridiculous day of logistics beforehand. And now that we're in Paris, we're like, all right, we just want to put our stuff down, get acquainted. We use the code to get into what we're told is our spot. Somebody else is there. Somebody else is there, and I was like, oh, absolutely not. What is happening here? I don't understand. Um, and then, but fortunately, the booking had a phone number.
Yeah.
But what was even better about the fact that there was a phone number was the fact that he didn't just speak English.
Did he?
No, he didn't just speak English. He spoke Spanish.
No, I mean, yeah, but he didn't speak English.
Oh, that's right. He didn't speak English. I forgot.
Yeah.
I think you heard that he didn't speak English, and we're like, oh no.
Yeah, no. I thought, yeah, because we don't speak French, so I thought, oh my god. But he asked Espanol, and I was like, perfect.
The first time it's like, yes, yes, we have that one.
Yes, we know that language too.
Yes. And so we got into our spot. Our musty smelling spot with almost no light in it.
Yeah.
The stove that we wanted to use was like, that one didn't work. Like, the stove didn't work and the microwave didn't work. And I was like, and you were ready to, and we were ready to call it a scam, and we were like, wow, okay. Okay, so we came to Paris and we got scammed.
Yeah, I got instantly disappointed. Totally. No, 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 no. Nothing like the pictures. Um, Terrible safety. anybody could walk in at any time, any neighbor, because apparently it was the same code for every door. Um, no, 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 terrible, terrible experience.
And it just again, it smelled like pee.
Oh yeah,
It smelled like pee. It was.
the mattresses. I wouldn't say pee, but I will say sweat
Yes,
or
definitely like they hadn't been washed.
yeah, the most uncomfortable mattresses ever.
And I could sleep on nothing. So the fact that I was uncomfortable, I was like, no.
Yeah.
And I remember asking, and so I think by the middle of the week I was like, maybe we should just imagine this as a French garret, which kind of makes sense, right? Because there was a loft upstairs. Because at least true to somewhat of the advertisement, there were two full beds upstairs and there was a twin bed downstairs.
Yeah.
So it could have been a party house if it wasn't so depressing.
Yeah.
But basically, I remember saying, "So Lalo, if you had a chance to fix this place, how would you do it?"
And I answered, I will demolish it and start over with something else.
And it's interesting, right? Because it's like, it's not that you can't design small spaces and small spaces can't be great. In fact, when we went to Brussels, the small space was exquisitely designed. It was very comfortable to be in.
Yeah.
But this small space, I don't even know what this was. And this is the main reason that people don't like Airbnbs and extended stay places, because they lie in the advertisements.
Yeah.
And you end up having to kind of fix it. In fact, the main redeeming quality of the area was close to train stations and buses, bakery close by, laundry across the street, convenience stores everywhere.
Many convenience stores. It was like an immigrant neighborhood, like a Turkish immigrant neighborhood, and
our second immigrant neighborhood to stay in.
Yeah, and they sold the most delicious food, the most delicious canned food, Tetra Pak, exotic fruits, juices. That was a great thing.
Yeah,
that was a great plus.
Like, if I think this is, and when you think about it, it's like that's basically what a lot of migrant experiences are, where basically the outside world is functioning really well and you can get access to things, but home is nonsense because you've been conned.
Yeah.
Like that's really what it is. It's like,
that's a good way of putting it.
And it's like, because I think about all the I think about the situations because I did census work, and of course you moved into a communal space after being offered other places. And it's like, again, it's almost like the purpose of a migrant is to go home and go to sleep.
Yeah.
So that you can go out to work.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, it doesn't matter how bad it is then, because all you're doing is going back to work.
Yeah.
And to have that message just hammered home, it's like, that's not the best message you want to send, Paris.
Yeah. The problem is that we didn't have jobs to go to.
Well, it wasn't even just that. We didn't not only have jobs to go to, we didn't have money to make it different. So Yeah. So that was a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad Paris. uh, Thanks for listening, and we'll tell you more in a minute.
Bye.
Bye.